Yeah, it is another episode of the Autumn Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. We are limping into week 3 in the NFL.
Just dragging our asses.
Just dragging more ass than an alligator. It doesn't feel like we're 1-1, batting 500, and still at the top of the AFC West, by the way. It doesn't quite feel that way, but it is that way.
Yeah.
Which leads to our question of the day. Wasted no time, getting right to it. For you guys complaining we banter too much. Question of the day, we'll have it pinned in the comments section. Let us know what you think. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no panic whatsoever, 10 being pulling the fire alarm, grab the wife and kids, and go across state lines, how panicked are you about this season and where it's going to go? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 most panicked, 1 least panicked. It's an interesting one. I feel like we're going to get scores all over the place. I could be wrong. Because like I said, we are 1-1. The season's just getting started. We are still number 1 in the AFC West. We're not sitting in a terrible place, and it's super early in the season.
Yeah.
However, we just got our dicks kicked in by the Buffalo Bills. Chandler Jones has lost his mind. We've got our 2 best receivers in and out of concussion protocol. Rookies aren't playing well. We're not coaching well, offense or defense. We're dying in the trenches. Basically, the only guys playing well are like Divine Diablo and our kickers. Basically it. So, Soto, I'll start with you. 1 to 10. Give me your panic meter.
I would say I'm about a 6.
Gentle panic.
Yeah, well, look.
Casual panic.
The main thing is we're only 2 games in. So if you only have 2 games and one of them was a really bad game, it's like half your season's been really bad.
Yeah.
So it's not – you have to understand something. Teams can get better throughout the season. Teams do often get better throughout the season. Normally, teams only get worse throughout the season because of injury. Mm-hmm. Teams normally get better. So there's that. I actually watched some tape today while I was at work. Don't tell the owner of my work that I was.
I'll edit this part out.
Yeah. But a lot of the issues that we're going to talk about offensively and defensively, they're not that big of fixes. They're just a little tweaks to what we're doing, either just personnel-wise, player-wise, or scheme-wise. So there's a little bit of panic because, again, before the season started and you asked, what's the scenario where you can see Josh McDaniels getting fired mid-season, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, losing is one thing. Losing is losing, okay, whatever. Getting embarrassed, that's something different. Yeah. And last Sunday, we got embarrassed. And if that happens a couple more times, I think the seat might be getting really hot because there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for how we showed up on Sunday. So that's why I'm like, okay, we did only lose 1 game, but the 1 game we lost, we got our shit pushed into the back of our teeth. So not good.
That's getting your shit pushed in really far. If it's going all the way up to your teeth.
Super
I mean, that's a 30-inch dong. So it's funny, like my happiness is improportionately tied to how my football scenario is during football season. Like I have a wife that I love. I have a kid that's amazing. I enjoy my job. I have a great big family. I have, mediocre friends, you being one of them. But my happiness from September to January is just tied to football. And
it's
I realize
kind of what happens on Sundays.
well, no, not even just Sundays. Like we both really like college football. Like Raiders are our number 1, period. But we like our college football. So that my UCLA Bruins are 3-0. Your USC Trojans, they're 3-0, right? Trojans 3-0. I also am partly a BYU family. They're 3-0. My 2 fantasy football teams are both 2-0. My NFL team is just 1-1. I've literally, with 2 college football teams, 2 fantasy football teams, and 1 NFL team, only lost 1 game, and I still feel like shit because I'm in panic mode with how bad we played against the Bills, the direction we're going, we beat the Broncos, but I think that's more just we just own the Broncos and they suck, as opposed to like, oh, we played so well, we should be proud of ourselves. Look, again, all that matters at the end of the season, if we're fighting for a playoff spot or whatever, is that we got the W. But when we're looking forward and judging the panic meter, I am in panic mode. It feels we'll go through the metrics shortly. It feels like things are starting to come off the rails. It has that feeling. And I wish I had a much more intellectual and like fact-driven way to explain why I feel that way. I don't. It just feels like things are coming off the rails.
I mean, I think it feels that way because it's really fresh, and that was a bad loss.
Yeah.
It was a bad loss. Like we were, after the first couple of minutes of that game, we weren't really in it. Even if the score was tight, because Buffalo had the ball for a long time, they pretty much did whatever they wanted. We couldn't do anything to stop them.
It's like that line. If I've learned anything from watching the first 2/3 of the MC Hammer documentary, it's that the money never runs out. It's like, if I learned anything from watching just the first offensive drive and the first defensive drive, we got this. And then it was just trash from then on out.
It was just rough business.
Yeah.
So look, well, actually, you know what? Let's get into it.
Okay. Question of the day, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super panicked, pull the fire alarm, 1 being we got this shit, we're going to the Super Bowl. On a scale of 1 to 10, how panicked are you about this season? Down in the comment section, pinned. So let's do a quick overview. We're 2 games in against 2 very different teams, both on the road, one at elevation, one at the other side of the country, so not optimal situations. Let's start with the defense, and then we'll move on to the offense, because the defense has been bad for about 20 years, and it hasn't really gotten. So I'm going to throw some very depressing stats at you, Soto.
Oh, boy.
Let's go through it. The Raiders and the Browns are the only 2 teams in the NFL without a forced fumble recovery, or interception. We haven't knocked a ball out. We haven't picked a ball up. We haven't snatched a ball out of the air in 2 games. And one of those guys we played, Josh Allen, had 4 turnovers the game before, 3 picks and a fumble. And what do we say going in? This is the Raiders' chance to prove that we can get that ball. We can get those turnovers. Something we've been craving. This is our chance. Josh Allen is just begging to turn the ball over. Still couldn't do it. We cannot get takeaways, Soto, to save our lives.
Yeah, a lot of things were done just very, very poor foresight. And we didn't put Josh Allen in the situation to make turnovers. We just made everything too easy for him.
Yeah.
I think the style of defense that we're playing just isn't good enough. We can play the way we're playing now in the back half of the defense if we were getting pressure, but it seems like the NFL is kind of read the book on Max Crosby and how to kind of stop him most of the time, and no one else holding him, and no one, they're basically triple teaming him. They're chipping him, and he's got the back to that side, and then whatever tackle is on him. It's not smart, and we're not quick enough to adjust, and we're giving up over 80% completion rate in the first 2 games. It's like 81.3 or something like that.
Yeah.
We're making it way too easy. When someone like Josh Allen, when you face someone like Josh Allen, you need to force him into tight throws. You can't let him get a rhythm throwing the ball over the middle, dumping the ball down, because everything is covered deep, but there's wide open guys over the middle. He's going to take that, especially coming off of a game where he turned the ball over so much. It was probably preached to him, hey, look, this is the way they played in the first game against Denver. They played everything on a shell over the top. Everything was open over the middle. If you can do that, you're going to open up some stuff down the seams, which a couple things did open up. But we're just way too laxed right now. Our defensive line is not getting any pressure. That's why a 4 turnover Josh Allen turned into an 80+% completion percentage Josh Allen against us.
Offensive player of the week this week.
Yeah.
Josh Allen on the Raiders.
Well, we gave him all the time in the world to do what he wanted to do. And he always had an open target because we were just leaving the guys over the middle open, and he was taking it.
So you think, all right, well, we're not stopping the pass that well. Well, maybe we're stopping the rush. Buffalo finished with 183 rushing yards. James Cook had a career best. He had the best game of his career against the Raiders, 123 yards. And the most by a Bills. This is how bad the Bills running attack is. That's the most a Bills running back has had in 6 years. Since 2017. It took 6 years for the Bills to be able to run as much as they did against the Raiders.
Our defensive tackles are so bad.
Just getting bitch slapped.
Our defensive tackles are getting rooted off the line. So even when they get double teamed,
I'm not convinced we have defensive tackles. I don't think they're real.
They are playing so poorly.
They're like Tupac. They're just a hologram. They don't exist. I'm not convinced they exist. Give me any proof that the Raiders actually have defensive tackles.
Our defensive tackles, even when the blocking scheme calls for a double team, they're just annihilated so quickly. The one of the offensive linemen just scrapes up to the second level and picks off a linebacker. And it happens over and over again where, Byron Young, dude, he is fucking terrible. He's playing terrible right now.
Yep.
He's getting pushed around. He has no root. He has no base. He just gets thrown around. They're so. I can't impress enough on you guys how bad our defensive tackles are. That's a huge problem because Max is getting, having to chase everything down from behind. We saw a video of Tyree Wilson chasing something down from behind because they're just running up the middle on us. They're just gutting us up the middle because our defensive tackles are absolutely terrible.
So if teams can pass on us at will and run on us at will, they're probably going to score a lot. We've given up 54 points in 2 games. That's the 7th most in the NFL.
Again, it's a little too early in the season to be talking like that because one bad game really skews a bunch of things.
It's weird because we held Denver to 16, which is awesome, right? But it was a weird week 1 where the Cowboys scored 40 and then everyone else is in the low 20s. It was a weird it's skewed even the other way because it was a really low scoring week 1, and again, when it's only 2 weeks, obviously 1 week can make a big difference. Well, if you think the defense is depressing and you think, well, the Raiders, we knew that we have to lean on the offense. The defense, it takes a while to turn it around. Offense is even worse. I didn't think I'd be saying that at all this season. The offense has scored 27 points in 2 games. That's last in the league. 27 points. 501 yards of total offense. That's 3rd worst in the league. 3rd fewest rushing yards in the NFL, and we're averaging 2.6 yards per carry. That's 2nd worst in the league behind the Texans. And that's with the NFL's rushing leader in our backfield. Fresh, healthy, and playing. This is the very first time, and then Josh Jacobs had negative yardage against the Bills. Literally negative yards. 9 rushes for negative yards. That's the first time since the NFL's merger. It's in the 60s. That the league's defending rushing champion finished a game with negative yardage. Literally never happened in over 60 years. That's how bad it was. That's how bad the rushing attack and offense is for the Raiders.
There's a lot of things with a little perspective. There's a lot of things going into what's going wrong with our offense. And we'll start with the rushing attack. Mm-hmm. Last season, and I gave this stat when we were talking about how important is Josh Jacobs to our running attack. He faced one of the least percentage-wise amount of loaded boxes, so 7+. In last season, he
it was primo box. Is what you're trying to say? He was facing primo box.
Yeah,
what movie's that from?
Yeah,
let us know in the comments section.
He
told me it was primo box.
Primo box. He faced like one of the least in the league. I think it was like fourth least in the league percentage wise of loaded boxes. So
they're
he
afraid
was
of our deep
running
threat with Davante
consistently.
Adams.
Yeah, he was running consistently against light boxes. So that's one thing. Another thing that's messing us up running wise is, and I said it in the post game show. I think Van Roten is a worse run blocker than Bars was a pass blocker. He's getting on the first play of the game. Ed Oliver pushed Van Roten 4 yards back into Josh Jacobs as he took a handoff. And that happened consistently the entire game. And it's not just him. Andre James is getting freaking beat up. Parham is getting beat up in that game. We just got our shit kicked in. The interior three offensive linemen are not playing well at all.
In fairness to Miller and Illuminor, they're both playing really well. Illuminor has yet to give up a pressure.
No, it's all the interior.
It's all interior.
Interior offensive line, interior defensive line are playing like dog shit. Yep. They are the reasons why we're getting run up against, and the reason why we can't run the ball is the interior offense and interior defensive line. Now, what do you do? What do you do if you can't run the ball because the opposing defenses are loading the boxes against you?
Steroids.
Yes. You throw the ball more. You throw the ball deep. Also, you use misdirection, but misdirection only works if your other shit is working too. Mm-hmm. If your regular stuff isn't working, they're not going to fall for the misdirection. Okay? And I think that was one of the things that was a big point of contention on Twitter or X, whatever the fuck you want to call it, Twitter, is, well, Andy Reid, they do misdirection all game. Well, yeah, because their regular shit's working too, so they can use misdirection throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Well, look, what we have to do offensively, what we're not doing is, number one, Josh McDaniels needs to do a better job of coaching. He is too predictable with his personnel groupings, with his play calling down and distance, and with his formations. He's very predictable. You and I can tell when he's going to run the ball. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing he can change. He can help out a little bit, is, spread the ball out a little bit, get people out of boxes, give Garoppolo an opportunity to change out of, if we have the personnel to throw the ball and to hurt them deep, you can do that if they're still crowding the box and they're still like, well, this guy's bluffing, he's not going to throw the ball, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. You can do that. There's three things right now. You can switch up personnel groupings and run the ball still. You can switch up formations, and also down and distance. You can, run on different downs and distances, and just first down, second down, run the ball, right? There's that. Throwing the ball wise, we have to be able to attack. And this is on Jimmy Garoppolo, because when I watched the tape, we had the middle of the field open.
Yeah, they're in single high safety the whole time. So they got 8 guys in the box.
So in between the seams, now Jimmy Garoppolo did a good job of throwing the ball outside week 1. He had so many opportunities to throw the ball in between the seams in week 2, and he didn't do it. So he needs to do a better job of identifying the targets that are further down the field. And he's just not doing it. And I don't know how long Josh McDaniels can let this go, because there were some really egregious misses by Jimmy Garoppolo when he threw to covered players when the middle of the field was wide open, with either Hunter Renfrow was open, Trey Tucker had one, and the tight ends were open over the middle a lot.
And he's throwing from a Clorox clean pocket. That's what's killing me the most. Is like, oh, okay.
He needs to look.
If he just doesn't have time and has to check it down, Josh McDaniels wants mistake-free football. You got to do it. But when fucking guys are open and you've got 4.5 seconds to throw, that becomes the problem. And I think the very first thing you said, what I think was the major factor. There's obviously multiple factors for an offense that's this bad with this many Pro Bowlers on it. There's many things wrong when you have 3 Pro Bowlers on this offense. But the biggest one is when there's no deep threat, everything contracts. That box gets loaded up. Those dump offs are harder to do. It's just those under routes are covered because linebackers are in further. Like, it's just everything. Like last year, like, we can argue all day long how good of a deep ball Derek Carr has. no one can argue he wasn't willing to throw it deep.
He was throwing it, yeah.
He was willing to throw it deep. And when you have Davante Adams and a quarterback willing to sling it, you have to respect that. You have to respect that, which is why we were facing 2 deep safeties all last season, and that's why we're facing all single, one safety sets this whole season, because no one respects the deep game. And why would they? Even when guys do get open, Jimmy G's not pulling the trigger.
So look, you don't have to throw the ball 20 plus yards down the field to attack a defense deep. Hunter Renfrow was open 15 yards, within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage, over the middle with no one around him several times. Yeah. Michael Mayer was open, at least 3 times that I saw. We did that one deep shot to Tucker, and we just abandoned it.
We abandoned it until garbage time when we threw to Davante Adams in triple coverage and he got concussed.
Yeah, and he got that wasn't, that's a cheap shot by the freaking safety, but still, he shouldn't have been in the game. That's a terrible decision to keep him in the game. But look, so the reason why I'm not super panicked right now is because the opportunities are still there. The offense is still working, as far as it's still giving players the opportunity to get open and to make plays. It's up to the quarterback. It's no difference from what we were seeing last year when I was like, dude, look at this play, look at this play, look at this play, and these players were open. I honestly think that Jimmy Garoppolo is not used to playing with a receiver like Davante Adams, and he's staring him down a lot. Yeah. And he needs to get used to the fact that you need to, as you're making your drop back, you need to peek around, because you know where your number one target is. You need to peek around and see what else is going on. But man, he's not going through his progressions very well, and it's a stark difference. And I understand it was in preseason, but it's a stark difference between how Jimmy Garoppolo is playing the position of quarterback and how Favre was playing the position of quarterback in the preseason. It was 1, 2, 3, back foot, boom, let it rip. He was going through his progressions as he was going through his drop back. So he knew my shit's open right here because I'm looking at everything else, because I know right here is going to be my play. Because if something else breaks down over here, that's a better play, I'm going to go there, right? He's not doing that. He's not processing it fast enough. And he's going to hear some fucking footsteps, man. Jimmy Garoppolo's going to hear some footsteps. If he doesn't get better, because as much as I'm
and he's only used to high heels.
Yeah, right.
Hardwood floors.
Hardwood
cleats on grass. This is weird.
Or whatever those stages are made out of in the strip clubs, right? As bad as I'm coming down on Josh McDaniels for being very poor in his adjustments second half, in his his personnel, his down and distance, and his formations and play calling, as bad as I'm coming down on him in the running game, in the passing game, people are still open. Jimmy Garoppolo is not finding them.
When you do an offense, we're going to play mistake free. We're going to move the ball. We're not going to turn it over. And you eliminate the ability of opening things up, chance at a home run. You have to be perfect. You're up. You think of the Greatest Show on Turf, right? They threw so many picks, but they didn't care because they were throwing for 500 yards, 400 yards a game, right? Things like that. When you're doing
fucking 3-4 fucking Hall of Famers on offense, and then Orlando pays 5.
Okay, and who was making and why were they Hall of Famers?
Both receivers, the running back, the quarterback, and the left tackle. Yeah, 5 freaking Hall of Famers.
And why were they all Hall of Famers? Because they're all part of that offense, right? Again, I'm not saying that's our really offense. My point is, when you're playing all right, we're gonna play mistake-free football and matriculate down the field. You got to get the ball out to your playmakers and let them do stuff in space, and it's just not happening. That is the only home run shot you have, right? You don't have a lightning type of, you don't have a Barry Sanders type running back that's you at any point he can break for 60. You're not throwing the ball deep to keep the defense honest. You're not playing like that. You have to be all right, slant perfectly to Hunter Renfrow and let him wiggle. Fade perfectly to Davante Adams, so he can beat his one guy, he's gone. You got to be able to hit those. And when it's just wait. All right, I'm going to dump it off. You're not going to get those options.
Well, that's what I'm saying is the opportunities are there. Throwing it to an open receiver over the middle is not a mistake. You have to take those opportunities when they present themselves. So I understand the concept of mistake-free football, but it's not mistake-free when you're missing open targets. That's the mistake. Just because you're playing conservative doesn't mean it's not a mistake.
That's my point. Is that like you can't be like, all right, we're going to hit one of these, these 3 downs we have. We're going to hit one because we're going to get 15 on it. It's like, no, we're going to hit a 5 and then a 4 and then a 7, and hopefully we'll hit like a slant and stride and pick up an easy 14. Like, you got to be throwing 80% accuracy in this type of offense, and he's not.
Well, it's not just the percentage of completion; it's the making the right read, making the right play. Because you can be dumping the ball off and have a crazy completion percentage, but if you're missing guys open over the middle, the offense is not running properly because the offense they're getting open because of the play call combinations and the route combinations and they're getting open because of that. So that's how the offense should run. And so it's more than just completing the passes that you're throwing. It's making sure that you're going to the right target with your passes. And that's the biggest problem with Jimmy Garoppolo right now. He's not going to the right targets.
Well, and you're saying like, well, why were the greatest show on turf? Well, because all the Hall of Famers. It's like Davante Adams is on his way to the Hall of Fame.
You'll be in the Hall.
Hunter Renfrow, for how he started, there's a chance, right? With how he started, he still got 10 years of playing with him. That may be still there. Josh Jacobs,
I think he'd be very good. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but I think he can be good.
It's too early to tell, but he is on a pace where it's possible.
Fifth
Josh
year.
Jacobs is on pace to be a Hall of Famer. Like, these are all guys with potential Hall of Fame numbers.
I'm not going to argue that. I think they're very good. I think we can both agree that they're all very good players when utilized properly. And I didn't think that Hunter Renfrow had that many chances against Denver. He had a lot of chances against Buffalo. Yep. And that catch that he had in the fourth quarter, he could have had 5 just like that, just as easy too, or if not easier. Hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo gets a little bit more comfortable with the other receivers, not named Davante Adams. I know that it was maybe a little bit easier for him when he had another guy he was really comfortable with, Jacoby Meyers, who is, I mean, I thought he was better than I think you and Rory thought he was. I think I had a higher opinion of him than you guys did. I think he's even better than the opinion I had of him watching him in that first game.
Well, he's a soldier. Jimmy G. He knows Jimmy G well, and he does exactly what he's supposed to do in that offense, according to Josh McDaniels.
He's an excellent route runner.
He was brought in for that reason.
He's quick. He's fast. He's got great hands. He's a lot better than I thought he was, and I thought he was pretty damn good. So getting him back should be a plus. So we just need to make sure that Jimmy Garoppolo is making the proper read, not just throwing the ball to make sure it's not incomplete.
So the rookie team this year, we're not used to having a rookie team under this regime because the last one we didn't have a first or second round pick. So it was kind of, we're kind of just judging what we got. Now we got a full complement of rookies, and we've all kind of been saying, I don't think you were pretty high on some of the middle draft picks. I don't think, I think we thought the ceiling could be pretty high. But we're also very much warning that, look, Michael Mayer isn't this insane athlete. He's going to need the smarts to develop, right? He's not, super dynamic. Tyree Wilson spent all offseason getting healthy, had no preseason. He's going to need some time. I don't know if we expected this. It's one thing to be patient. It's the one thing to be developing. But in all 4 categories, the Raiders rookies are the worst through the 2 weeks at their stated position compared to other rookies. Michael Mayer, 6 out of 6 at tight end amongst just rookies. Byron Young, no big shocker there, 9 out of 9.
Kobe Turner out of Wake Forest. I liked him a lot.
Jalen Carter, we should have just grabbed. We should have just grabbed Jalen Carter.
Look, man, I say it all the time. Every time I see it on Twitter or someone tells me about it, I personally would have drafted Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying during the draft party and everything I was doing. I said Jalen Carter is the pick, but I understood why they didn't pick him.
Because there'd be heat for 48 hours and then no one would talk about it again.
Not necessarily 48
100%. 100%.
No, that's not true. You can't say that.
I can.
No, you can't.
True.
No, you can't.
Defensive end. Another guy we could have picked up. Tyree Wilson. Number 12 out of 12. And it is a steep drop on his grade compared to the rest of them. And then why not round it out? Jakorian Bennett, 10th out of 10 at corner.
Boy, those Maryland DBs are looking bad. Davante Banks was his teammate.
All four of our rookies that are getting significant time are last at their position by rookie standards. Now, we've been saying patience, especially with our top two picks. How much patience should they get? Because there's one thing for patience with Tyree where it's like, okay, you know, he's just kind of average out there, still getting his footing. Last amongst all other rookies, when you're playing opposite Max Crosby,
it's really bad. And we were talking about this earlier today, and I kind of used my little I don't know what the fuck you'd call it.
Peckerwood.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
It's like if any Laker fans, any basketball fans out there, there was a guy in like the early 2000s. His name was Mark Madsen.
Hell of a dancer.
He played a nice role on those Lakers championship teams.
Think Ophie white guy.
Yeah.
All hustle, all effort.
He played defense. He's like a Kurt Rambis. He played defense.
Mormon dude. So, you know, he slept at night and didn't drink.
Yeah. Got good rebounds, played good defense, hit the open shot when he had it.
Great ball control, those Mormons.
Yeah, right. But this guy, when he left the Lakers, he was the 12th man on whatever team he was on. He couldn't get on the court. Because he played a specific role with excellent players all around him, right? When the rest of the team is playing so bad, it's really hard for a rookie just kind of figuring it out to really shine because they have to, you know, do a lot more sometimes to kind of make up for what's going on around them. It's not an excuse. They need to get better, and they're playing really poorly. I'm not going to say just yet that they whiffed on all these picks because, I mean, if you get 50% of your picks right in a draft, that's pretty good.
I mean, look, it's 2 games in, but
again,
we can only judge what we got, right? Like, look, we got excited about Aiden O'Connell because of 8 preseason quarters. If we can get excited about 8 preseason quarters for a backup quarterback in their preseason, we can start making some evaluations of our rookie class, not final grades, but certainly some early evaluations. And I think it can be a very good point that if you're on a bad defense to begin with, rookies aren't generally going to thrive. But that doesn't excuse last for all these guys at their position. That's something that needs to be worked on.
The one I'm not surprised with at all is Byron Young.
Mm.
I watched him on tape against the Bills, and he was routinely getting pushed out of the shot. He was getting driven so far, he was out of the shot. Routinely, he was getting pushed out beyond like the defensive end.
CBS needs to have their own camera on him, just to be able to keep him.
It's bad.
He has his own 22, all 22. It's all 21 plus Byron Young.
And Tyree Wilson, all Tyree Wilson does is bull rush, and that's it.
And reach and miss.
He just bull rushes and just sits there. Doesn't hand fight, doesn't try to rip through, doesn't try to swim a spin move, doesn't try to do a swim over, nothing. He doesn't try to do anything. He just sits there hand fighting. It's I mean, we've all seen a spin move. Even if it's a bad one, at least try something.
At least give me like a face mask penalty. You know what I mean? Like push a face mask. You know what I mean? Give me an effort of some kind. Because he looks like a robot, which is weird.
He's running directly into the tackle head on. He's running straight into him, and he's just grabbing onto him, and then just fighting. Mm-hmm. That's all they're doing. Khalil Mack had this awesome move he used to do a lot. He used to get off the line, and when he's getting close to the tackle, he would go sideways, and he would stick his hand right in their chest. Mm-hmm. And he was so strong, he was able to keep him off him where he would get around. Look how long are Tyree Wilson's arms? If he gets in there one good time and gets right in the chest really quick, he can get around him. But he's just not doing anything in his pass rush. He's just running directly into the offensive tackle, and they're just sitting there grabbing each other. It's terrible. It's bad.
It's like a high school girl learning to drive. Just white knuckling the steering wheel and going in one direction.
Oh my God. There was this, I'm not gonna say her name.
Say it.
It rhymes with Schmeshmini Schmiller. And she was in my driver's ed class. And she was the worst driver I've ever seen in my life.
Did she she run over a homeless guy or something? What'd you do?
She would start okay, it's time to start the car. Okay, start the car, and then okay, now I push on the gas, and she would immediately run into the curb. Mm-hmm. And we're like, how do you do that? Like the wheel wasn't even turned that way when you started the car. The wheels were going straight. All you had to do was just like let go of the brake, and you would go straight. She hit the gas, and it automatically hit the curb.
And even this chick would look at Tyree Wilson's pass rush and be like, dude, just do a move. Just like turn a little bit. Like, come on. Even I can tell.
Yeah, even she's better than Tyree Wilson doing that.
In happier news, no, I take that back. It's not happier news. This is bad news. Brandon Staley, coach of the Chargers, he's about to get fired. Start the countdown. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the Chargers, we remember how their season ended last year, right? Up 4 touchdowns. Still lost to the Jaguars.
Well, 24 points. 3 and a field goal.
This year, 0-2. They were up in the fourth quarter. Both games. Still managed to lose. Justin Herbert has been throwing for like 1 billion yards. And they still managed to lose. Now, 0-2 is a magical number. 0-2 to 0-3 are 2 magical numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And this is from this is a stat that's been going around, but I want to make sure I credit Bill Barnwell for it from ESPN because he's the one that brought it up in this context. Since 2002, 21 years, roughly 1 in 10 teams that starts 0-2 make it to the postseason, which I think is kind of a high number. Only, roughly 10%, 1 in 10. You start 0-2, your chances of making it to the playoffs drop to about 10%. When the Bengals did it last season, they were the first team to do it since 2018.
Yeah, it's been a few years, folks.
It's been a while. Right?
I think, was it Houston?
Well, Houston. I'm glad you brought up Houston. Because when you drop to 0-3.
Oh, they were 0-3 in 18.
When you drop to 0-3, things get hella hyphy. Desperate becomes hopeless. Since 2002, 99 teams have started 0-3. And just one team, the aforementioned 2018 Texans, have made it to the playoffs. 1 in 99. Now, the NFL is now a 14-team bracket, which means that the 2013 Steelers would have made it, but you get the point. It's almost impossible. It rarely never happens. Starting 0-2 is digging yourself into a hole. Starting 0-3 is you're 10 feet under quicksand. The Chargers are 0-2. And to make things even more sexy, do you know who they're playing on Sunday off the top of your head?
The Minnesota Vikings.
The 0-2 Minnesota Vikings. This is essentially like...
Talking about throwing for 1 million yards and still losing. If you're Kirk Cousins.
This is a loser leaves town match on Sunday. Legit. Right? A legit loser leaves town match. If you don't
like a hair versus hair match. Someone's getting peeled off.
You're not, and you don't win anything. All you do is survive. But if you lose, your season's over. Your season's over if you lose this Sunday. Vikings and Chargers. Now, we've been talking about it all the time. The Chargers team is loaded with Pro Bowlers. I think it's a top 5 talent roster. You've got a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. You've got one of the best undrafted running backs in the history of the NFL. You got Pro Bowl wide receivers. You got Pro Bowlers at every level of the defense. Playmakers all over the place. And yet Brandon Staley, the defensive guru, the defensive mastermind. Thank you, CBS, for letting me steal this graphic. Points per game allowed, 31.5, 30th. Total yards per game allowed, 438, dead last. Third down percentage, 45.5, almost 50%. That's 24th. This Chargers defense, despite being loaded to the tits, is arguably worse than the Raiders.
They're playing worse than we are.
They're certainly playing worse, despite being overly jacked with talent and having a defensive mastermind, Brandon Staley, as their head coach. This is the most underperforming roster this season and last season. And they're losing in the most, damn it, the coach screwed up most ways. Losing late and losing comeback, right?
It's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, if the Chargers lose again, they're the Chargers and they're going to suck and whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I don't know that Brandon Staley survives if he loses again. I think it's 0-3 and he's done. Because, look, if you're the Chargers, you're thinking to yourself, we're not going to be able to win with this guy. So might as well get him out of here as fast as we can because we still have 14 games left to turn it around.
That's why I said at the start of this segment, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Yeah. Even if they lose on Sunday.
And then we fuck them up to make them 0-4. Oh, thick ticket.
Staley, is that first Charger? That's at home. That's in LA, right?
That's in
first
LA.
Charger games in LA, right? The bus just
doesn't matter. It's a home game anyway.
Yeah, right. Well, I was gonna say, oh, they leave him on the tarmac and at McKenna Airport, but they're going to be there.
You have a stroke there or something?
I almost said McKellen Air Force Base because I just rewatched Independence Day.
Oh, okay.
Where's
he going with this?
It's like, all right, they're going to it's just a matter of do they leave him on the tarmac or do they leave him in the parking lot, right? Because he's not getting
one
it
of
right
the two.
back, right? Now, what have we been talking about with Brandon Staley forever? He's been a media darling, and that's what I love. And so look, we're talking about getting fired, and normally, as Raider fans, we're going to be cheering a Charger franchise that's falling apart in the season, firing their coach. The best thing that can be for Raider fans is for Brandon Staley to be coach as long as possible. But I'm a realist; he's not going to be.
Yeah, he's not going to be. He's not long for that job, man. If it wasn't bad enough that it took him this long to make the playoffs with the roster that he has, if it wasn't bad enough that the playoff performance that they had in the second half against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then to start the season off as bad as they're playing now, it's just too much. It's just there's got to become a point in time where as an owner or a GM, you're just going to be like, all right, dude, even when you freaking do things right, you still fuck it up. So let's just pull the plug. If it were me, and I would fire him as soon as possible into the season because at least you have some time to figure out if you can, pull lightning out of your ass and make
Charger lightning bolt out of your ass.
Exactly.
So you've heard me say for I think about as long as we've had this show, as long as the Autumn Windbags have been around, and we're in episode 193. What have I said has been Brandon Staley's lifeline? He's a media darling. Media love him.
Not anymore, man.
Not anymore. But for the longest time, the media loved him. And I was like, great. That's going to be the one thing.
Jacksonville loss. It turned everyone against him.
That's what's going to keep everyone kind of like keeping him around is you're not going to hear the media calling for him to be out of there. Right. And it's new media, right? They were in San Diego. Now they're in LA where no one cares about them. They're still an NFL team in a major market. So they're getting coverage, but it's different. It's different when you've been a beat writer in Philly for 30 years and you have a bone to pick with the coach. Like it's very different. Like he's been handled with kid gloves. One, because of the market situation that he's in. Two, because he's a media darling. He says all the things the media wants to hear. When John Gruden got canned, he was right there to like clutch his pearls. There's no place for this in National Football League. I am appalled and appalled and blah, blah, blah. He's one of those guys, right? That'll just give you that holier than thou soundbite that the media loves. And two, he's a big like metrics guy, which the media loves as well. So he was going to get all this benefit of the doubt from the media. After this game on Sunday. It's over. This was his last question and answer on his post-game presser. I know, Soda, you haven't seen it yet. So
I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
Buckle up. He was asked a very fair question. That do you think the hangover from how, soul-crushing that Jacksonville loss was in the playoffs last year carried over it all into this year? Because we're seeing kind of a repeat. It's back-to-back blown fourth-quarter leads, and one of the most talented teams in football can't buy a win. I thought it was a very fair question. Brandon Staley did not.
I'm not worried about the Jacksonville loss. The Jacksonville loss hasn't carried on to the season whatsoever. If you've seen our training camp or you've seen the way we've played in the first two games, it hasn't had an impact on our team whatsoever. Our team is connected. Our team has played its heart out in two games, and we've lost two tough games. But it has nothing to do with the Jacksonville game. And if you ask anyone in our locker room, it has nothing to do with the Jacksonville game. And that's just the truth. It's a convenient storyline for you and for everybody else, but it's not the truth. We've lost two tough games, but the guys in that locker room, the men in that locker room, they are finishers and they have what it takes, and we're excited to prove ourselves. Yeah, we just lost a game in overtime, Jeff. So how do you think the mood is? How do you think the mood is?
How do you think the mood is, Jeff? What do you think the mood is,
Jeff? You fucking jerk.
What a dickhead. Asking a very, pertinent question. In a lot of ways, that was kind of a lifeline. It's like, all right, do you think that, maybe you guys just haven't recovered from that, soul-crushing loss last season? No, Jeff, it's because I suck as a head coach. That's why we're 0-2. That would have been the best answer. That would have saved Brandon Staley a little bit and be like, look, guys, you guys are all there. That was so rough. These guys can overcome it, but we're still kind of feeling it. Instead of okay, then what's the answer, Brandon Staley? Why can't a team loaded with Pro Bowlers not buy a win early in this season?
Jeff fucked up. He fucking pissed off Brandon Staley. If I was Jeff, I would have tried to lighten the mood. I would have been like, Brandon Staley, knock knock.
Who's there?
Owen.
Owen who?
0-2. That's what I would have tried to lighten the mood.
You would have been back there with a fake beard, the glasses, nose, mustache thing on with a press hat, being like, hey, yo, it's Johnny Soto from the Los Angeles Times. I have a question. From
the Herald Examiner.
Rip it off. You just got a Raiders suit on. 0-2, bitch.
You remember in the MTV Music Awards one year when one of the guys from the Beastie Boys went up and he was weird beard. He's wearing a beard and a freaking lederhosen and shit. He's like, yeah, Beastie Boys should have won this. And you don't remember that?
No. I didn't watch that shit. I was an adult before I was an adult.
I had a little sister. She liked watching that shit.
Point being, Brandon Staley's one little lifeline, his one little ace up his sleeve was he had the media kissing his ass. Now that's gone. Media can be very petty at times. And if you come down on one of their guys for a very fair question, I thought a very pertinent question. In fact, it could have been a lifeline for Brandon Staley. Yeah, that's why, maybe it was a carryover from last season. Certainly not my coaching. It's not me. It's gotta be something else. When it is your coaching, Brandon.
I think we have a little bit of a difference of opinion on how fair that question was. I think that question was a little dickish, but he certainly didn't do himself any favors by how he answered it. Like you said, one of the big allies that he has is the media, and he just pissed them all off. So if he wants to know what real media scrutiny is, not just a question, but the theme of every single question he's going to get from now on, he just lit the fire himself.
I thought it was entirely a fair question because I think that's what a lot of people are thinking.
Right? We can disagree on that, but
I think there's so many
on how he answered it was terrible.
I think all 5 Charger fans are still kind of feeling it, right? Imagine being a Charger fan and that's how your season ended. Just how nut crushing. You're like, oh, we're the Chargers. We always we're on our way there, and then our kicker gets hurt. We're on our way there, and we just get bitched out of the playoffs. We're so close. We're so talented. We just can't get through. And then this is how it ends again in something that you can blame a lot of coaching on. Sometimes a kicker misses a kick. how much blame can you give the coach, right? The quarterback gets hurt. How much blame can you give the coach? You blow an almost 4-touchdown lead. You can put a lot of that on the coach. And I think it was like an entirely fair question. We'll agree to disagree. Staying in the AFC West, I think Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are doing the horizontal polka.
Are they?
You didn't hear those rumors? The rumors are swirling that Travis
really
Kelce and Taylor Swift are seeing each other. Travis Kelce's brother, Jason, was asked about it, and he kind of made a joke. He's like, "Oh yeah, definitely. Everything you hear is true." But he's just kind of like, he's like, and he kind of like said, "No, I'm joking." But that's the rumor that the tight end in Kansas City and the biggest rock star on planet Earth, that tour she did,
dude, she's set for 3-5 lifetimes.
That's like the money that tour made is like the gross domestic product of this continent of Africa. Like, it was insane. Like, she would sell out stadiums 3 nights in a row.
Dude, those are $800 tickets, dude.
And if you sell out one basketball arena, you are an A-list act. If you sell out the Honda Center in Anaheim or what was the Staples Center in LA, you sell out one time, 20,000 tickets one time, you're like, wow, you are an A-list, you're crushing it. If you're selling out 80, 90, 100,000 people stadiums 3 days in a row, that's Rolling Stones. That's Beatles. That's insane.
That's like U2 in Europe at their peak. Just like fucking 150,000 people soccer stadiums, dude. That's what that is.
Yeah. Even then, I don't even know if they were doing 3 nights in a row. Like, this is like it's potentially unprecedented.
Who do you think she is? Bruce Springsteen or what?
Bruce wishes.
Right?
Bruce wishes. But then randomly, the dude who had a dating show and plays like one of the least sexy positions in football, that's who she's talking to?
I guess the friendship bracelet worked.
I hope that it's one of those things where it's like Kelce's like totally her bitch because she's clearly the alpha in that relationship. He just starts like turns into putty in her hands, does whatever she says. She's like, "Oh, sorry, Patrick, I can't make film study. I have to make Taylor Swift breakfast." It's a rule. I hope either that happens or he cheats on her and she just makes albums about being cheated on by some tight end from Missouri.
Dude, can she must have the weak fucking neck game or just weak freaking like snatch game, bro. Because
what's that meme? Taylor Swift has 800 songs about breaking up and not one song about blowjobs. Kind of makes you think.
Man, she got some weak neck game because she's cute, she's freaking talented, she knows a lot of she knows everybody, all the famous people. She's got money just dripping out of everywhere.
She seems sane. She seems like normal.
Keep a man. Yeah. I don't get it. Honestly, I don't get it. Maybe, look, I have family members. I'm not going to say who it is. I'm not even going to make fun of it. But I got family members who are, they're very good looking girls and they're successful and they're smart and they pick the biggest pieces of shit to date. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on here? Maybe that's what she's doing. Who knows?
It's probably that abusive relationship with their brother. They're just like, oh, this is what I got to do.
My cousins? My other cousin?
Oh, I thought it was your sisters.
No, my cousin, dude. My
cousins?
Sister.
Oh.
No, my sister's freaking dude is chill.
I would prefer Travis Kelce date like an insane artist, like Lindsay Lohan, like Cardi B or something. Like, I want to see him on TMZ.
Imagine Kelce and Cardi B.
Yeah, like, have you seen the Johnny Football documentary yet on Netflix?
I've seen some of it.
It's awesome. Watch the whole thing. I want him like that. I want him with the iPad, and it's like 0.0 minutes of watching because he's just doing lines with Lindsay Lohan.
Good for him.
Whatever the Viper Room is these days. In some Raider news, we got an update on Chandler Jones.
Oosh.
According to Ian Rapoport. Sources, Raiders pass rusher Chandler Jones has been placed on the non-football illness list as he deals with a personal issue. The team has stood behind him and no one has ruled out a return if his situation improves. You can always tell the NFL writers because they'll tell you the most, like the general facts, right? The facts. And then they're always sugar-coated at the end. The team has stood behind him and no one has ruled out a return if his situation improves, right? Because they want to put lipstick on a pig, right? Because they want to maintain relationships with the agents and coaches and GMs and players. So anytime anything happens like this, they're always like, oh yeah, he's out for the season, but he'll be back better than ever next season, is committed to the rehab process. You know what I'm saying? There's always that part of it at the end of it when it's the national media.
We're not even getting that.
What is the non-football injury list and what does it mean? So basically it's an injury or illness that occurred outside of team activities. If a player is on it during the season, he has to miss at least 4 games. So it's kind of like, injured reserve a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Basically. So he's out for at least the next 4 games. Most importantly, it frees up a roster spot, which every team doesn't want to waste roster spots on someone that's going AWOL and doing nothing but playing on Twitter.
Blackmailing you on Twitter. Shit.
Exactly. Now, the other part is you don't have to pay a player's base salary for the games that they miss. So we're like, oh, awesome. Chandler Jones is making so much money. We can save a little bit of that. Sorry. He's only making $1.165 million of base salary of the $17 million he's due because he's already been paid that $17 million when they restructured his cap. So we're not saving any money. We're not trading him for assets. All we're doing, the only win we got was we saved $1 million and opened up a roster spot. That's it.
Rough.
That's the update that we have. Now I have a couple questions.
Okay.
You have to qualify for this designation. You have to have some sort of, I don't know for sure if like a medical doctor has to fill out something for it, but I know you need you can't just say like, oh, we're going to throw him the NFI. It's like, no, you need documentation of some kind that proves that this guy is compromised with an illness or injury that didn't happen on the football field. I wonder what that is. Is it like he's diagnosed schizophrenic? Did they lie and make something up? Did they just say he's hurt? Like, you can't just say, all right, it's really weird, let's throw him on this list. You have to prove this. You have to prove something somehow. What is that proof?
It sucks, man. It's got to be some kind of mental episode. So we both, been around the fight game for quite some time. Mm. And I've known this to happen. I don't know if you've known this to happen, probably. But sometimes I've noticed, or I know of a couple of instances where the fighters that have been getting a little bit older feel like some type of psychotropic mood, drug that they're taking, like let's say like a Xanax or something like that, right? As a prescribed that. Let's just say, for example, they feel like maybe they're losing a little bit of their edge as they get a little bit older. Maybe they don't feel like they're getting old and like, they're naturally just, declining in ability. Mm-hmm. They feel like their mood drugs are causing them to lose an edge. So they stop taking them. And to deal with the repercussions of that, they start self-medicating, and that creates a huge spiral. There's a guy that we know, I don't know, I've met him before, I don't know if you've met him. Last name rhymes with Schmiller, who's getting in some trouble, who that pretty much happened to.
Jason Mayhem Miller was crazy before, and then this just kind of,
well, he stopped.
Spark that lit the keg.
From what I hear, I don't know exactly yes or no, but from what I hear, he kind of stopped, really taking any type of, prescribed drugs for what he was, going through. And he started self-medicating more than he was before, and it just didn't work out well.
Yeah.
And that's just one example of it, maybe not to that extent, but I've seen it happen more than just that time. And that's what I thought. Yeah. Honestly, that's what I thought. I was having a conversation with our boy Sanjeet, and he's like, dude, that totally makes a lot of sense. And I told him, listen, man, I don't take it as Bible, but I've seen this happen with aging athletes, or in the fight game at least, who have just stopped taking their medication because they feel they're losing an edge. I'm not saying this happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but that's what I've seen happen, and it kind of falls in line with what we're seeing with Chandler Jones? Because this pretty much came out of nowhere.
I mean, that's as good of a hypothesis as exists. I mean, they're all being so tight-lipped. We know whatever's going on with Chandler Jones, he's still like got his phone and is still tweeting and is still out and about.
Pictures of Harriet Tubman.
Right? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's not like he's like drooling in a corner somewhere, right? The other part of this too is I think in something we've talked about before is, how Antonio Brown, there was kind of whispers that he was kind of a wild card when he was with the Steelers. But Mike Tomlin and company kept it all pretty much under wraps. We had no clue how insane Antonio Brown was until he went to the Raiders and he lost his mind, right? As much as I hate the Patriots, they run a really tight organization. And Chandler Jones could have always been this crazy. At the Cardinals, maybe the same case as well. But not until he got here where it's just not an organization that's good at hiding the crazy did this all kind of come out. He could have always been this way, and it just came to a head here. Your theory is certainly plausible as well. There's, of course, that instance in 2016 where he was smoking spice and lost his mind and went to
maybe he stopped taking his medication and started self-medicating. We don't know.
Back on spice again. I mean,
who knows?
He's still tweeting, and it's making less sense. So you talked about how he's basically...
Hey, y'all follow me on all my platforms. Love and peace.
And he deleted some. He deleted the ones talking about how Mark Davis is like pimping out players' wives. I was blackmailing Mark Davis. Like,
someone got molested and shit. Like, what the fuck?
He deleted the weird heavy ones, but he kept the weird lighthearted ones. Maybe free game until I play. My AG story, that cereal, eat it. It'll do you good. Don't even know what that means. Posted a screenshot of an Instagram story. I'm posting free game until I see Larry Fitzgerald. And then, sorry, Johnny Bones, his UFC champion brother. Sorry, Johnny Bones, orders. Don't know what that means. Drake. Just a picture of Drake. And then my favorite one. No context, no caption, just a shot of Harriet Tubman. Just chilling.
Maybe he wants to remind everyone about the Underground Railroad.
Maybe he was reading a history book and thought was very inspired by Harriet Tubman. I don't know. Is September 19th like a holiday I don't know about?
Not that I'm aware
Underground Railroad Day? I don't know. Most likely scenario, he's just like, please tell me. Please tell me he's sane enough not to think because he's talking about how I'm such a victim. Drake, Antonio Brown, Alden Smith. I know how you guys feel. We're all in the same boat. Kanye. Please tell me he's not like, I'm a hero like Harriet Tubman. Like, I'm a martyr. I'm a vessel for good. Just like one of the most inspiring female members of our American history. Please tell me that's not what he's alluding to.
I don't know, man. I can't even tell you. There's just so many different directions you can go with that. It's hopefully with this designation, this means that he has been checked out and he is receiving the care that he needs. Mm-hmm. But it was just really weird from the very beginning. I was kind of wondering why he wasn't practicing during training camp for a couple of weeks. It's just a weird situation. I don't know that we'll ever get the whole story about this. Probably some like peripheral player, just some like a fun, pick a lighthearted, funny guy on the team in like 3
AJ
years.
Cole in like
AJ Cole will say something in like 3 years on like the Pat McAfee show. Oh man, Chandler Jones. You want to know what really happened with Chandler Jones? And he spills it.
He was jerking off in everyone's locker room, and he wouldn't stop. So we had to get rid of him. You're like, oh, okay.
People were slipping and everything.
He was posting posters of Harriet Tubman over the urinals. It was freaking people out. Well, speaking of medical care that was properly received, some good news for Raider Nation. Davante Adams and Jacoby Meyers both in practice on Wednesday. They were both in concussion protocol, and you're always worried about concussions because you don't know how it's going to, how it's all going to pan out. We were assuming that they would be back no problem in time for the Steelers Sunday night, and it seems like they are. Injury situation pretty good. Davante Adams full practice. Jacoby Meyers limited with a concussion. A couple other rookies and younger guys limited, but other than Tyree Wilson, who had an illness, so you think most likely he'll be back. Not terrible injury trouble heading for our home opener against the Steelers.
Yeah, we've seen him play better.
The Steelers, they got 8 guys that didn't participate in practice.
Yeah, most of those guys are veterans. They're just taking a day off. Yeah.
And also, it's a Monday night game, right? So they're just kind of like, look, we traveled. Sunday night, right? Well, no, their last game was a Monday night game. Their last game was a Monday night game. So like they traveled Tuesday, and they're like, look, I'm gonna take Wednesday off. I'm a veteran. Blah blah blah.
Hit a hard Thursday, Friday, travel Saturday. Good to go.
Yeah, it's one of those things, I imagine. So we had such a monster show. We didn't get again to the preview of Raiders versus Steelers. Raiders -2.5 point favorites in primetime on Sunday Night Football. This could, as bad as the team's been playing and as bad as we looked against the Bills, there are elements here for a pretty nice little comeback. The Steelers' offense is so bad, so atrocious. And some of our strengths play pretty well to their strengths, right? We talk about how Illuminor hasn't given up one pressure. Him versus TJ Watt, I don't expect him to shut down one of the best defensive players in football, if not the best. But at least it's like strength versus strength. There's a couple things that make this lean like, okay. The biggest one is they played a super physical game that was almost 4 hours long on Monday night on the other side of the continent. So we already got that going for us. So I promise, I lied to you last week. I promise this week we will do a preview show on YouTube. Keep an eye out for it. Ready to do some Autumn Windbags?
Yes, sir.
Shima Utah 86. Hey guys, does it look like McDaniels has only one game plan going into games and makes 0 adjustments in the second half? Also, thoughts on Patrick Graham now in the booth? I personally think coaches need to be on the sidelines of the players so they can give specific orders during crucial moments in the game.
Okay, so 2 things. I don't know that McDaniels has one game plan. The second half of the Denver game, he did change up the game plan quite a bit by using a lot more motion that he didn't really use in the first half to get favorable matchups. So that's one instance. Last game, there was just not a lot of execution going on. When your interior offensive line can't block whatsoever, it makes you one-dimensional, it's really hard to move the ball. And when you do have open players, your quarterback doesn't,
I'm tempted.
Advantage.
I'm tempted to say that McDaniels has a really great, scripted start, right? Because the first drive was so good against the Bills. It was beautiful. It was like we were all, all three next to each other. It was like, Other than that,
5 plays, and the first play was -4 yards.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful, that drive. It was just, and then we had a 3 and out the next drive. Like it was just started out tits. So I'm almost like, oh man, his scripted plays are great. But then you'd think like his second half scripted plays would be kind of the same, right? You'd have a script for the second half. And the first drive of the Broncos game wasn't great either. So it's like, it's not that.
He doesn't even do a better job. He just needs to do a better job of making sure that he can open up the opposing defense with the passing game. Because if he can't do that, we're not going to be able to run the ball. It's just that simple. If the passing attack with Jimmy Garoppolo can't threaten the opposing defense, not even deep, but just for chunk plays, they're just going to be loading the box.
What Raider Nation should be hoping is that the offense that Josh McDaniels has now is different enough that from what Jimmy G String was used to in New England, that it's a learning curve thing and not Jimmy G just can't do it, right? Because remember, he was with the Niners 5 seasons, right? So that's half a decade, man. That's a long time to be away from a specific playbook. So honestly, I think it's one of 2 things. Either Jimmy G is just not the quarterback that Josh McDaniels needs and wanted, and we've kind of learned that Josh McDaniels needs his guys. He's not really the most flexible play caller. Or the learning curve is still a little behind for Jimmy G, who, remember, was still not fully recovered during the preseason, right? Who's still in the building, but not quite the big a participant because he was still recovering. Fingers crossed that's what it is. Is that just the playbook he just hasn't absorbed yet because he's been away from it for half a decade. Patrick Graham in the booth. I've never, as like a radio host and analyst, I want to have a strong opinion on defensive coordinators in the booth or on the field. There's advantages to both, disadvantages to both. With Patrick Graham specifically, because he's less of a raw coach, I think being in the booth isn't as big of a deal. If you get a better eye for everything, you have, your laptop and all your assistants around and everything's simple and easy. You've got your headset, no big deal. If he was a raw, like motivational defensive coach, I can see that being an issue, but I don't know. Where are you, Soto?
Most of the instruction to the players are going to come from their position coaches. Mm-hmm. That's where you get most of your instruction from. So that's like the lower level stuff, right? The very like minutia, like you're not doing this, you're not doing anything to that. The big, penthouse view stuff, that's not a problem with him being in the booth. Because he's going to have Rob Ryan? Yeah, Rob Ryan behind him as an assistant, a second eye looking at things. It can't hurt. Again, because he's not going up to a guy specifically and saying, you're doing this wrong in your technique or you played this wrong here. That's what the position coaches are for.
And he can always just, pick up the red phone to any player at any time. Like he can talk to any player he wants. I do understand you are missing the face-to-face element that can mean something. It just doesn't feel like Patrick Graham. He's an Ivy Leaguer. Like, let him be up with the nerds.
Man. He needs to be able to I think he just needs to be able to get a better scope of what's going on so he can call a better game.
He needs to be up in the nerdery with his calculator.
That's fine with me, man.
What movie is that from? Let us know.
Easy.
W Ray 2 Real W697. Real creative names today. You can't expect superstar carry a team play. Okay. You can't expect superstar carry a team play from a running back that is not paid like that. You get what you pay for. This is not Chandler Jones situation. Motherfucker, Josh Jacobs is the third highest paid running back in football. The third highest paid running back in football.
I hate to
if he was
say
paid
it, man.
the second or first most, then we can expect him to play hard? What?
I don't want to think that I was right about one of the issues signing Josh Jacobs to a big contract, which was when he had something to prove, he played hard. When he didn't have anything to prove and he had guaranteed money, his play dropped off every single year. So his rookie season, balled out. His second year, not as good as the first. His third year, not as good as the second. Then he had something to prove his fourth year because his fifth year option wasn't picked up and he balled out. And he gets guaranteed money, he gets big money, and nothing's great. Now, we have seen the offensive line not perform that well. But again,
a lot of things. And he's out.
You got Saquon Barkley get hurt. You got Nick Chubb get hurt.
Missing in how bad our run game is. He has been really good at the backfield. Like 5 catches for 50 yards or something. So it's like, again, I
don't think it's his effort.
I don't think it's effort. It's everything else around him. Missing the preseason, that does matter, right? I'm not saying he came in like out of it. Does. There's a reason why everyone else does it. There's a reason why coaches want you to be there because it helps and it matters. And he wasn't there, and it matters. But this idea that if you pay a guy more, you'll get the extra umph exactly as much. Like if I pay you 20% more, you'll get 20% more effort. 1, that's bullshit. 2, don't forget how Josh Jacobs got paid. He got paid out of goodwill and nothing else. The franchise tag is very clear. $10.1 million for a running back. That's it. You have no leverage. You have no negotiation. You can't sign a long-term deal. None of that. He was given an extra $1 and $8 or whatever $1 million for no reason other than goodwill, which counts as a fail by our GM. That we just, it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but you gave him money, you didn't have to. You had all the leverage in the world. You held every card in the deck. You're like, all right, here's an extra 1.7 mil. If anything, If anything that 1.7 million did was by goodwill. It's like, hey, Josh, we love you. We don't have to pay you this, but we will because you're the man. Let's get you suited up. Let's get to work. If any running back, if any player on the Raiders should be like, man, they gave me money they didn't have to, I should give more effort. It's Josh fucking Jacobs. It's not an effort thing.
Yeah, it's not that he's not being paid enough. I think if anything, we've seen it happen the other way is after players do get the huge contract, they start pressing and they don't play as well, initially at least.
Because he's still on a 1-year deal, right? So he's still on a prove it.
He still has to prove it again.
Still, right? If he wants, any
and
more
all these
money
running backs
season,
getting hurt is not doing him any favors.
Yeah. Derek Passante, 1828. How many years does it take to fix the problems we have on defense? Well, it's been 21 since 2002. It's been 21 years since we've had an above average defense. It's been over 10 years since we've had a defense better than 20th. I hope it's not another 20.
God, I hope not.
I think it's going to take, and the trend of maybe I'm thinking way ahead of time and too negative, but like the trend of hiring like offensive gurus as head coaches has kind of like been the thing. We just haven't focused on it. We just haven't focused on a great, we could have picked up Fangio. We could have picked up like all, pretty good defensive minds throughout the course of the last 10, 15 years. Like make a real commitment to a strong defensive mind, give him the tools that he needs. Haven't done it in 20 years. Haven't done it. Like, let's just list the last, like, the 20 years of our defensive coordinators.
Ken Norton. Who was the during
Patrick Graham, Gus Bradley, Paul Gunther. Dude, our defense is like Paul Gunther numbers in a lot of ways.
It's bad.
That's how bad it's been. Ken Norton Jr., Jason Tarver, Chuck Bresnahan. Chuck was pretty good. Bresnahan wasn't bad. But since then, has anyone...
And the thing is...
Any defensive coordinator done anything to wow you? No.
It's not like we haven't tried to use draft capital to bolster the defense. We've been taking massive whiffs, like DJ Hayden, Gary and Conley, freaking Jonathan Abram, Damon Arnett, Cleveland Farrell. Like we've had some massive whiffs in the first round defensively.
And that's also
Rolando McClain. Like what the fuck?
Well, that rolls into like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, are all those players, all those defensive players we've been drafting, all really that awful, or have like just schematically? Like, are they all Mark Madsen's, or are they all just going into schematically a black hole?
Well, they haven't gone anywhere else and lit the world on fire either. So,
yeah, I mean, there's plenty of guys that played defense with us terrible and played better elsewhere. Recently, Unique Ngakwe's got the only sack on the Bears. Who is that Colts cornerback? Why am I blanking?
Rock Yassin.
He's having a really good season. I mean, it's only 2 games.
The Ravens, right?
Ravens. He's playing well. Like, there's guys that have basically. It's rare that someone plays really well on the Raiders and worse elsewhere. It's almost always the other way around. Not that DJ Hayden was going to be something special, right? Not that Damon Arnett was going to be something special.
Hey, don't talk about Damon Arnett. He's going to shoot you.
Right? Not behind bars, he won't. All right, that's it for us. Like I said, we will, and I promise, I don't lie to you guys. I only lie to girls. We will be doing a pre-show for the Steelers. We'll probably do it Saturday morning live on YouTube. Come join us. Come join the party. And we'll keep you up to date. Anything new happens with Chandler Jones, anything new that happens injury-wise. Stay close. Enjoy the ride. We do have swag out. We've got a Farva t-shirt out I think you'll like. A Jimmy G-string t-shirt I think you guys will like. The store's right down there, right below. We'll take a gander. If you're just kind of a classic OG type guy and you just want the Autumn Windbags logo on a hoodie or a coffee mug, also an option. Just
Yeah, guys, if you ever wanted to know how to support us, to help give you a better product, that's a great way to do it. Is just to check out some of the swag that we got. If you like anything that we got down there, go ahead and give it a whirl. See what you think.
If you're trying to turn your girl on, just get a T-shirt with Soto's face on it and just wear it around the house. Bam.
It can only make you look better.
Until then, knock on wood if you're with me. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.